How much fear grips an American in combat? The Mutual Network has the honor to bring you the voices of Purple Heart Marines of the Fighting 4th Division who know the answer. As you hear their stories, you'll know that in this war, brave men are afraid, and men afraid are brave. This is Paul Killiam of the War Services and News Division of WOR, transcribing in New York this special Marine broadcast, during which you'll hear also a talk with Second Lieutenant Bob Crosby, now with the 5th Division in the Pacific, a stirring new Marine song for the first time on the air, and we'll be let in on a personal message to Tokyo Rose from the members of the 1st Division at their advanced base somewhere in the Pacific. And it's from the first that we hear first.
Somewhere in the Pacific. It's just about as close as we can get to letting you know where this program is coming from. There's a good many of us here tonight, and, well, listen a second. That greeting from thousands and thousands of voices is a hello to you in the States from the men of one of the fightingest outfits of them all, the rugged, tough, hard-hitting 1st Division United States Marine Corps. If you have a map handy, close your eyes, stick a pin somewhere in the Pacific area, and then imagine that that spot is the one from which we're talking to you right now. You never can tell. You might be pretty close to being right.
Thanks, Corporal Bill Lundigan, somewhere in the Pacific. We may not know exactly where you Marines are fighting now, but we do know some of the places where you have fought. And we know that when you fight, you're not ashamed to be afraid. Sergeant Robert Wells of Chicago, who helped the 4th Division get Saipan ready for the B-29s, was hit by shell fragments in the driver's hatch of his tank. But he was able to wink in the face of death. Sergeant Wells.
I will never forget that day. The Japs opened up on us and we scrambled to cover behind our tanks. For some reason, I noticed the faces of my buddies. They were grim, tense. I wondered if I looked that way too. Then I caught a friend's eye and winked. He winked back at me. We both smiled and the tension melted away.
Sergeant Bert Nave of Luther, Montana, who has seen 10 campaigns and was hurt before landing at Saipan, had one of his brushes with fear when his outfit moved on to Tinian.
We were passing along a hedgerow at Tinian when a Jap anti-tank gun opened up on my tank. 2 of the shells pierced the side of the tank, wounding my loader. At first, I was so much afraid that I could hardly control myself. But then I looked down the periscope. I could see the infantry advancing under heavy machine gun fire. Seeing these men doing their job brought me around sharply.
We'll hear from more Marines of the Fighting 4th, but right now let's drop in on the 5th Division. One thing going on there is the visit of a show troop led by Second Lieutenant Bob Crosby. And one of the first people that Bob should run into down there was his old school chum, Master Technical Sergeant Bob Campbell of Spokane, Washington. And here they are.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Bob. Glad to see you again after all these years. Been a long time, hasn't it, since Spokane and North Central High School? It's 15 to be exact. Remember the last job we played there? Right, the North Central Senior Prom. Remember the tuxedo I put on you? That's right. Tell them where we got it. Well, Bobby didn't have a tuxedo to work that night. We wanted the band to look pretty well dressed up, so we borrowed one of things. Beautiful tux. Did it fit you well? Well, not very well. A little too long and sparse, and a little too, let's say, small around the middle here. But it was a blue tux. I imagine you for the win. Well, we have regular size, the regimental size band. Been to any smaller units? Have any jam bands or jazz bands? Yes, we do have both. We have a concert and we have a dance band, 16 men, and we have some smaller ones that we use for parties, so on, which some feel as part of the scheme. Yes. Well, I came in the Marine Corps as morale and recreation officer. I didn't come in as band leader. But we sat up there on a rock and waited for 3 or 4 months for some entertainers to come along and help the morale of the troops, including the morale officer. And I was finally instructed by the Comm-Gen to get a show together, which I did, and I organized a little jazz band. We've had a lot of fun with that band, with the show. We used 35 people, I believe, in the show. They're all Marines, they're all GIs, they're all combat trained, combat conditioned, and we put this show on the road at the request of General Howling Smith. Of course, that's merely between training periods, and when the division moves, we'll move with it. Tell me, any nips around here? Oh, yes, we have a few. In the corners yet. Where do you go to bed tonight? You mean I'm going to corner them? No, you right where you lay down, you'll be just a nice range. Well, I hope they like Bing. Well, they probably do. They listen to his records all the time. And we better put a sign up on the hut. Don't shoot. This is Bing's brother. Right. Right. We have a little radio station here that plays not only for our benefit, but I think they listen to it too. In fact, I know they do.
Well, Lieutenant Bob Crosby and Sergeant Bob Campbell of Spokane, we hope neither of you get nipped down there in the Pacific. Nipped like Corporal Dan Smith of St. Louis, who got his Purple Heart with the 4th on Saipan. How afraid were you, Dan?
There's one incident I will always remember. An Enemy 76 sighted in on our tank just as we sighted in on it. I was gunner. The range was not more than 30 feet. Fearing the Japs would fire before I could, I was afraid of being hit. I seriously believe that fear speeded up my reactions and helped me sight and fire accurately. We beat their fire by a split second. At the moment, I was too busily engaged to worry about overcoming my fear, and now it seems that fear is quite natural at such moments. So long as a man doesn't allow himself to become paralyzed by fear, it doesn't seem plausible to fight against it. It must be natural. I don't know. I only know there are times when you are scared.
Scared, yes, but you fight. Fight as Sergeant Howard Roulette of Madison, Wisconsin fought on Saipan when he volunteered to go out after more snipers, although he had been wounded himself. You fight like Corporal Carl R. Magnuson of Lynn, Massachusetts, who was hurt by a mine.
The first day on Saipan was the hardest. Our tank was hung up and we were forced to vacate, but fast. We were well beyond the front lines and knew that the moment we opened up, our little friends would throw anything and everything at us. That moment, sitting in the tank, preparing myself for something I felt sure was to come, was the longest moment in my life. None of us expected to get out alive or live long if we did get out. But somehow we made it. All of us, without a scratch, with the help of some swell infantry guys who lay down a cover of fire for us.
Sergeant Al Carbuto of Glen Cove, Long Island, wasn't too shaky after Guadalcanal, Cape Gloucester, Talasea, and Palau to put down on paper a song which had been running through his brain and which came to him while he was helping the 5th Regiment take Hill 660 on Cape Gloucester. He calls it, "Get Your Gear On, We're Moving Out Again." And here it is for the first time on the air as recorded on portable field equipment by his pals in the 1st Division.
Get your gear on, we're moving out again. Now here's the story of a word that's known to all Marines. We think it's here to stay, 'cause we hear it every day. It started back in 42 when we sailed away. And now we're on the march, boys, and this is all they say. Get your gear on, we're moving out again. Keep your 5-page interval and keep your voices thin. It's the word we hate to hear when we lay down all our gear. Get your gear on, we're moving out again. The word is getting famous as the song Seattle-line. To us it's just a tune that bears the same old grind. We'd like to change the words, but the captain has the say. So stand by, fellas, here it comes, the word is on its way. Get your gear on, we're moving out again. Keep your 5-page interval and keep your voices in. It's the word we hate to hear when we lay down all our gear. Get your gear on, we're moving out again. When we're hiking on the trail, the captain's on the run. The odds are 2 to 1 that we're bound to beat a gum. A break is called for, it's okay to keep the boys all right. No use to sing the blues, boys, we're moving out tonight. Get your gear on, we're moving out again. Keep your 5-page interval and keep your voices in. It's the word we hate to hear when we lay down all our gear. Get your gear on, we're moving out again. When we're home and settle down, we'll hear no more a jeer. All we want to hear is come and get your beer. The time is short, so don't delay. The ship is on its way. So hop on, fellas, here we go to our home and far away. Get your gear on, at last we're on our way. We are headed for the good of USA. I can see O'Frisco Bay where the captain to stay.
Sergeant Carbuto, we hope you're listening today, because we'd like to be the first to tell you that we've played this field recording of your song for one of the biggest publishers in New York, and it's going to be published right away. You know, it's a light-hearted song in a way, and we think it may well become a sort of permanent musical reminder of the way you Marines can conquer fear. Marines like PFC Paul Hayes of the 4th Division and New Goshen, Indiana, who was hit by an anti-tank gun on Tinian.
I'd like to see the man who hasn't been afraid in battle at some time or another. I know I was. It was while our tank was being fired upon by the Jap anti-tank gun. I became excited and afraid. Then I saw the rest of the crew. They seemed to be calm, cool. They were carrying on. So I carried on too. I never noticed at the time that I was wounded.
Or American-born PFC Vincent Nunez of Tijuana, Mexico, who was hurt by grenade fragments.
Our tank was hit on the second day on Saipan. We took 5 hits from Jap anti-tank guns on my side of the tank. The lights in the periscope went out. We were not yet scared. I replaced the periscope and we were hit again. Suddenly I was afraid, very much afraid. Somehow we got away. I made up my mind I'd go out again the next day. Unless I did, I knew I would always be afraid.
But there's one party of whom Marines are definitely not afraid, and that's Tokyo Rose. But let's hear from the 1st Division on that point.
Dear Tokyo Rose, because for so many, many months now you've entertained the Marine Corps in general and the 1st Division in particular, we feel that the only gentlemanly thing to do is return the compliment. So we have a little number we're going to play tonight dedicated just to you. But first, Rosie. In regard to those cracks you've been making, that the folks back home will forget about us out here in the Pacific when Germany surrendered. Rosie, I'm surprised at you. You know, ordinarily you're a pretty smart propagandist, but this time you've certainly missed the boat. Why? Well, it's this way. You Japs with your bowing and scraping to the man of the house have about as much family life as these Jeeps parked out here in our motor pool. On the other hand, we and our mothers and sisters and dads and brothers have not only a devotion and a love, but we also have a mutual respect. And that's something you Japs couldn't possibly understand. Ah, Rosie, they haven't forgotten us out here, nor will they, and we haven't forgotten them. And now, as I say, just for you, we play Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee 29.
That's it, Rose. Good night and pleasant dreams. Signed,
Get your gear on, we're moving out again. Keep your 5-page interval and keep your voice the same.
We have visited Marines of the 1st, 4th, and 5th Divisions, now at advanced bases in the Pacific. The song Get Your Gear On, We're Moving Out Again, heard today for the first time on the air, was written by Sergeant Al Carbuto of Glen Cove, Long Island. Purple Heart veterans of the 4th Division told their stories in collaboration with combat correspondent Sergeant Dick Mawson and Sergeant Jack Vinson. This is Paul Killiam of the War Services and News Division of WOR, transcribing this special Marine broadcast in New York for WOR Mutual through the cooperation of the Radio Section, Division of Public Relations, United States Marine Corps.
Get your gear on, we're moving out again. When we're hiking on the trail, the captain's on the run. The odds are 2 to 1 that we're bound to beat a gum. A break is called for, it's okay to keep the boys all right. I used to sing the blues, boys, we're moving out tonight. Get your gear on, we're moving out again.